My name is Kirsten Mitchell, and my partner is Gabbi Miller. So I will direct this video critique towards Gabbi, and I'll start off by explaining what you wrote your paper about Gabbi. I'm sure you already know, and it's environmentalism, that man-made climate change is the inconvenient truth. All in all, I think that your paper was very good, as I emailed you multiple times. It felt like a couple points I was actually reading it directly out of Weber's book, based on your layout and organization of your paper. I printed off a rough copy, as you know, and I'm going to copy it and we'll scan it, and then I'll email it to you so that way you can see my highlights and footnotes and scribble marks. All in all, my main critique for you would be two things. And one being your typos. You just have a couple of typos, like a missed period, and you worded some things very odd. Oh, and you had an indentation where I felt like it wasn't necessary. Like what one paragraph was talking about, the next paragraph was talking about similarly. So I felt like you could have actually taken away the indentation and made the two come together. Your movie choice, I've never even heard of the movie, but I know that I read in your summary that it includes Mark Wahlberg. Okay, so I think that sounds very interesting. Now I will start off to explain your paper, just so that way anybody that's watching this video can get a better insight or idea of your paper and its integrity. So, all in all, Gabbi wrote, I didn't even talk about my second critique. Okay, my second critique would be, I wished that after finishing your paper you would have mentioned more towards Al Gore and how his documentary mainly pertained to CO2 levels, which your paper touches base with, and also in the beginning of his environmentalism career, he focused more on like a strategic plan towards tackling environmentalism, but as his career progressed, he actually changed his mind, from what I gather, and felt like what's the word that I'm thinking of? Al Gore actually changed his approach to tackling, or his plan to tackling environmentalism, also known as the man-made climate change, into consumerism, which I feel like would have also pertained to your article very well. Now, I'm gonna start with giving this gist of it, just so that way everybody can know, and plus it'll give me a way of jotting my memory onto any of the topics that I feel like were good or I have suggestions on. Your abstract was very good. I thought that it was concise like it needed to be and really gave a good idea as to setting up what your paper was going to be discussing. My only critique on your abstract would be to possibly include the idea of possible myths. Like, you mention what climate change is, how it's handled in today's society, and you mention your movie, and I wished to have seen that maybe like a sentence that would just say something like a couple of the myths, like just to jot through them, like how this could be just a phase that the Earth is going through, similar to the Ice Age phase. We just get through it and then we expect it to reappear. Or the CO2 levels, or the greenhouse gases, etc. Okay. I really like that you set up the beginning of your paper with 3 paragraphs that pertained to building onto environmentalism and show just how much it's changed since the dawn of time since humans have been here inhabiting it. Like I said, your first bit of support / argument is with your scholarly reference by the name Sloan and his Closing the Blinds article, and just how he basically explains how the greenhouse gases are easily a source. And of course, greenhouse gases are expected, but not with how much they've been since man's been a contributor. So then you just explain how industrialization, which I feel like a good spot there would be to mention Al Gore and the consumerism aspect. And then you mention after that the Geordie X Zifra, and how basically other countries are combating against environmentalism versus the US, who is basically going backwards, where actually it seems like we're contributing more to climate change versus helping it. And that the minorities are those that still believe that climate change does not exist. I don't think I would have anything to add there, really, because I think that paragraph speaks for itself. It all seems like very good information. Like, I feel like it was good that you mentioned it. Then your next one has to do with the chemist, Svante. This chemist basically dives into CO2 and how it is affecting the overall global atmospheric temperature. I think here would be the best spot, if anything, to mention Al Gore and his documentary of The Inconvenient Truth, because that seems to be like all that he talked about in his documentary, and I feel like it could have really fueled your paper with knowledgeable resources, and I want to say fuel the fire. I feel like it really would have fueled your fire of your paper and just gave it more substance, I guess. But all in all, like, the CO2 bit was good. I just think that if you wanted to make it better, you could mention Al Gore. Like I said, either way, I just really wished you mentioned Al Gore throughout more of your paper, because I think that you could have struck a couple of his things. I would have liked to have seen you not tear down him, but really open up his theories or his ideas or ideals, and basically say it in your own words and back it up with your evidence that you have, your support and arguments. Okay, now I'll go to your myths. And I think that you worded your myths very good. Like, that's one of my critiques, one of my little footnotes on your papers, is that you worded it very well. I like that you put things into words that I was thinking, or I've thought, but never been able to put into words. You put as your myth is that global warming is not global warming at all, just a natural change in the weather. And that comes into your next scholarly reference that was in your bibliography, and that is the man named John David Lewis on his article of History, Politics, and Claims of Man-Made Global Warming. I definitely think that this was interesting to see in your paper, because in one aspect I felt like it was contradicting everything that you just said, but at the same time I respect it, because if anything it gave your arguments more integrity in a way, because you mentioned how this man is basically saying that this is just a phase we're going through, similar to the Ice Age. It's something that just happens with the Earth and we move on with it. And I just think, like I said, I think it was very nice to see that you put that. At first when I read it, I was like, wait, what? And then I even put on here that it's contradicting, but that I think it actually helps your case in the fact that it contradicts everything that you've spoke for when pertaining to man-made climate change, but it helps you. Okay, And then your film, I think you did a really good job at explaining it. I've never heard of The Happening, but it seems like a movie that I need to watch, especially because it has Mark Wahlberg in it. But I think that all in all, your summary's good. Like, it basically gives me the gist of the movie. You didn't seem to nag on and on about it. I think you were very concise with explaining it. And then there's right after your description of the movie. Well, it's halfway through your description of the movie. When you're talking about the airborne toxins, that's where I feel like you could have actually got rid of the indentation and brought the two paragraphs together. Which, when I scan these papers and email them out, you'll see that, where I put that. And I feel like the film is actually something that I do need to watch, just for the fact that it ends the same way it began. Because all of this happens in another country. It seems like it's just a film about nature retaliating, and these people are oblivious to what's happening, and they think nothing of it, that it's just the earth fighting back, versus they think it's just a random little fad, or like a random break of like a disease or something. Okay. All in all, you did really good at relating the theory to the film. I actually like that you gave like two supporting pieces with each way it helped relate to the film. Like the one, how the humans had been destroying the planet for centuries, and the movie talks about like specific ways about that, and then you explain how the pollution is an example and the bees being endangered is an example. How the film does not work, that's where I found the majority of your grammar errors, actually, and like the way that things needed to be worded differently. So I will let you read all of those comments yourself. I think you could have used commas in a couple certain places and whatnot. Okay. And then onto your unconscious ideology. I think that this was very good, based on the fact that you're basically stating that this is not just a random time, and the earth will heal itself. It's something that we need to take activism in and help fix what we've done. Your reference page was very good, because I think that it all looked properly, like the way you cited things and indented the following lines. So, that is all. Good job, Gabby.